Thank you, Zoom lady. Um, Maybe slide 36. Okay, sorry. So, outlines of Lamrim Chenmo. Mm, all right. There's a kind of a unique feature in the Tibetan, all Tibetan traditions. The outlines are very important, right? Um, it's good. It's helpful. You get to kind of get a framework, and then sort of populate that, right? Populate the outline. So before we were dealing with outlines from Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, remember? And then I said, yeah, we'll later talk about the Lamrim Chenmo outlines. So here, training the mind in the stages of the path shared with persons of medium capacity, the mental training, identifying the mind intent on liberation, right? So that's the one. Other places they translate as renunciation, but here, mind intent on liberation. I like that. So first, it was to understand if we're talking about liberation, then what is bondage? Bondage, right? Samsara. What binds us to samsara? Karma and afflictions. So to be free from the karma and afflictions is what it means to be liberated. Hmm? Okay. So we want to have that mind of what's the Tibetan? Ne jung. Ne jung. In other words, ne, definite. Jung means to emerge. So to think, I don't know if some of you know Venerable George Chernoff. Anyway, he I took the Kopan course with him many years ago, and he's American. A bit of a musician, maybe, or at least knew some classic rock, which I was fan of many years ago. And so there's this song, right? We got to get out of this place if it's the last thing we ever do, right? You know that one? So it's like that. Ne Jung. We definitely have to get out of this place if it's the last thing we ever do. Okay? That mind, intent on liberation. Ne Jung. So then, how do we develop that mind, intent on liberation? Right? Well, then we talked about how we have to view the faults of samsara, right? And because of that, then this point A, reflecting on suffering and its origin, and point one there, reflecting on the truth of suffering. There I need an of, truth of suffering, and the false of psychic existence. And that's why we went through the 6 types of suffering, 8 types of suffering, and 3 types of suffering. And I'm sorry you missed out, but we meditated on that before the break. And we all had, I hope at least we had what we were talking about. Remember, this contrived sense of renunciation, where through effort in our meditation practice, we contemplate in a certain way and we think, oh man, samsara, such a drag. Yeah, drag. Such a bummer. Right? Now, point 2 is the reflection on the process of psychic existence in terms of its origin. In other words, we're talking about the Four Noble Truths. The first point there, truth of suffering. Second point, its origin or the cause of suffering. Okay. So now in this class, in this session, we're going to go through that. Next slide, please. So this section on the afflictions or the truth of, the cause of suffering we have then how the afflictions arise. And then we have identifying the afflictions, the order in which the afflictions arise, the causes of the afflictions, and the faults of the afflictions. So next slide. Arya Sangha. Yeah. Mm. So he wrote, I think this is, which text? Bodhisattva levels. He defines an affliction is defined as a phenomena that when it arises is disturbing in character and that through arising disturbs the mind stream. Okay. So sometimes this very word in Tibetan, nyongmong, nyongmong, and then in badly pronounced Sanskrit, klesha. I think in Pali, it's more like halis. Yeah. In any case, that same word then, when it's translated into English, different translators have different words they like to use. So you'll see anything from afflictions, delusions, disturbing emotions, afflictive emotions. What was one word they used? Yeah, not sure. Anyway, you'll see a lot of different translations for that same term. But yeah, basically, disturbing emotions. When it arises, our mind is quite disturbed, right? Now, they actually, in one presentation, they say there's 84,000 delusions. 84,000. Then there's also the presentation into here we have 6. There's a presentation to 10. There's a presentation into, I think, 22. And then there's a presentation to 3. Different ways to cut the cake. Okay. But for our purposes, maybe the division into 6 is okay. So the 6 afflictions are attachment, hostility. You'll sometimes see translated as anger, pride, ignorance, doubt, and wrong view. Now, it's worth mentioning, you always have to be careful or just maybe aware that when we use these words in the specific Buddhist philosophical context, sometimes they take on different connotation than how we use these same words on the street, right? So here, it often comes up, wait, attachment's bad? Doesn't a mother have to have attachment to her children? Right? So the Tibetan word here is dechak. You have to keep that in mind. Dechak. Then some Western translator thinking, how do I render that into English, right? There's 2 kind of schools of thought with this, right? One school is we should use words that we all know and then render that and try to find the kind of closest word and then use that. See, what the Tibetans did many centuries ago when they were translating from Sanskrit, they came up with a lot of new words, right? Came up with a lot of new words to describe these things. In one way, it's more precise, but in another way, then you have to learn all this new vocabulary, right? Mm. So kind of same thing goes on now with Tibetan, right? To say the word computer, right? You can say computer, computer, or you can say lokle, right? Lok is electricity. Le means work, right? So, hmm. Anyway, my point with all of this is when we talk about the afflictions, then when we talk about attachment, it isn't just the kind of attachment we talk about a mother for the child. It's an affliction. It's something to be abandoned on the path. And the kind of attachment the mother has for the child, taking care of the child and so forth, I don't think that's something to be abandoned on the path, is it? Right? Right? Mothers, they become enlightened beings. They don't just then leave their children, right? Hmm. So, in this sense, attachment, right? There's a kind of healthy balance up to a certain point, and then there's the kind of extra problematic one. Okay? The way it's described in the text, the unhealthy one is when you, if you were to like spill oil on a piece of paper, very hard. The oil sinks in and you can't really remove, right? So similarly, when our mind gets attached in an unhealthy way, then the separation pains, right? We don't like that. It's difficult to then separate our minds from that object. So maybe there's a more precise word in English, or maybe we need to invent one, right? Or maybe we can just use duchak. Hmm? What do you think? So hostility then, right? Sometimes translated as anger or hatred even, right? So here again, sometimes people say, wait a minute, isn't some anger good? Don't we need anger? Hmm? But again, in this particular context, it's talking about a wish to harm, right? So we could, for example, and sometimes in the beginner courses I teach, there's some activists. And it's good, right? When we see injustice and other problems going on in the world, we should work to help and work for social justice and whatever. But you see, even though you might um, attend a rally and shout slogans, you can do so with different mindset, right? I remember way back in various anti-war protests, right? Some turn violent themselves, right? Start throwing rocks and bottles and all these kinds of things. Well, if it's done with a wish to help or done with a wish to harm, right? So the sometimes even His Holiness will say, to use the word hatred is a little bit better than anger, because we can think like, yeah, I'm angry that there's injustice in the world, right? But this difference between then wanting to harm those committing the injustice versus maybe thinking, wouldn't it be nice if they could change their views on this and come to think about this in a different way and yeah, even have a mind of compassion towards these people rather than a wish to harm. Hmm? So then pride sort of wanting or thinking of oneself as being better than one is. Hmm? Ignorance. Hmm. Now, uh, ignorance can be of, yeah, different shades. And since we're talking about ignorance as being an affliction, right? In general, ignorance being a kind of not knowing of something, but all instances of not knowing aren't necessarily an affliction in the sense of something that needs to be abandoned by the path, right? So I like to say, like the population of Nairobi, Kenya. I don't know how many people live there, right? But fortunately, I can still become someone who gains liberation from samsara without knowing that, right? That's not an affliction that's to be abandoned on the path. So here, what we're talking about with ignorance is not just a mere not knowing, but an active distortion of the reality, right? And the type of active distortion we're talking about, remember the two levels of truth, right? So on the ultimate level, how phenomena exist, right? So we kind of impute, superimpose, right? Superimpose, project a level of existence above and beyond what's actually there, right? So doubt, next one. Doubt here, again, not all doubt is an afflictive doubt. So sometimes you'll see this as afflictive doubt. And here, for both this doubt and wrong view, it has to have a particular content, subject matter of the doubt. So these kinds of views that are going to be, remember we were talking about this view of nihilism, right? That nothing exists. So also along with that, if we think that liberation doesn't exist, if we think that the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, don't exist, if we think that karma and the connection between our good actions and happy results in the future doesn't exist, then that severely undermines our impetus to practice, right? If you don't think that liberation exists, we're not going to, try for it, right? So therefore, when we talk about wrong view and doubt, it's about those kinds of subjects. Now, as they say, as His Holiness is very fond of quoting this from Sutra, that just as a goldsmith, only after cutting, rubbing, and scorching, right, some yellow metal, only after they go through that process will they, acquire the gold. So too, you monks and scholars should only adopt my teachings after thorough analysis and not out of mere respect for me. Okay. So, with this kind of thought, right? Now, some they hear this quote maybe, and then later they like play it back to me, and they've totally like changed it. They said, "See, the Buddha has said, don't believe what I say." Right? It's not like that. Not like that. But what he's saying is the not out of mere respect for me, right? With a mind of respect, actually, to go into the Buddhist teachings and analyze what we said the first day, right? Take this as a hypothesis and see if it holds true in your experience, in your life. Then, after you have that, then, oh yes, I really have faith in the Buddha. I see this as being, something very beneficial for my mind. Now, after that process of analysis, maybe it's not holding true for you, right? Then also, we don't then say, it's a bunch of hogwash. He's unreliable. But keeping in mind what we said at the beginning about the greatness of the Lamrim teaching, understanding that the Buddha's teachings themselves were designed to the specific needs of the people in the audience, then we can still have this thought, oh, this teaching is not for me, but maybe someone else is going to benefit from that. And hey, isn't it great that there are teachers in the world that can tailor their message and advice for the needs of different people and still therefore have faith or respect? Okay. So now this doubt, there's healthy kind of skepticism, especially when we get into things very, very subtle, past and future lives. Oh yeah, I don't know for sure, right? I don't remember my past lives. I hear the reasoning about it, and I'm like, okay, right? But that's okay. We don't need to then, you know, um, accept things dogmatically. We can still analyze. So this kind of like healthy, balanced doubt, still inquiring, that's fine. But once we get into this, like, probably not, or so the doubt, the afflictive doubt, would be, probably not. I don't think so. Like, then the wrong view is definitely not, right? So at the very least, try to keep a, you know, open mind to these things. Yeah. Yeah. So here I would say the craving and aversion probably are the same thing that's being referred to as attachment and hostility, right? So remember, we talked about even the uh, three afflictions, three root poisons, they call it. And there you'll see craving, aversion, and ignorance, right? Okay. So now the order in which the affliction arises. Next slide. So here, the great Indian master Chandrakirti in his Pramanavartika says, once there is a self, there is an idea of other. On behalf of self and other, there is attachment and hostility. All the faults come about in association with these. Okay? All right. So the order in which the afflictions arise, once there is the self, and now remember the two levels of truth. The self exists, right? So here, when they says once there is self, it's talking about that superimposed, more than what's actually there, sense of the self, right? So once there's that, then there's other. Then those things that we see helping the self, benefiting the self, we have attachment. We like that, right? So we want to cling on to it. We don't want to let it go. Fell asleep. Then the things, hello, the things that we see harming the self or harming, our loved ones and so forth, then we have hostility, right? They harmed me, they harmed, my clan, therefore hostility. Then all the other faults come about in association with these, right? Pride, that larger than life sense of the self, that one's better than everyone else, right? And then all the kind of secondary afflictions, belligerence, um, yeah, they come from that root. Okay. So next, ooh, causes of the afflictions. So now, basis. Here's some nice terminology. Basis refers to the latent proclivity for afflictions. These scholars. We were talking before about the seeds of the afflictions, right? Seeds of the afflictions is the ability for the afflictions to arise. Okay, that's what it's talking about. You know, yeah. I'm always wary of words that like I never use in my real life and then only in like Buddhist philosophical context, like this other one, adventitious. Yeah, lorbua. You came across that? Adventitious? And okay, I know you've come across it many times. Outside of Buddhist context, have you come across it? Never, never. So, so object. Okay, so maybe then just a thing. Basis means since we haven't abandoned the afflictions and their seeds, there's always the chance that they'll arise again in the future. Object refers to the appearance of objects conducive to the arising of an affliction, right? What does that mean? Beautiful objects, sights, sense, tactile sensations will develop craving, attachment, not wanting to let go. The unattractive objects, then we'll have aversion and want to, banish from our sight. Social context refers to the influence of bad friends and foolish people. This term, bad friends, another Lamrim text, I think one of the masters was saying that, uh, the bad friends don't have to have horns, right? Like a demon or the devil. But Dario is saying even the ones, and maybe this has happened to you, right? You want to come to the meditation retreat. Like, what? Don't go there. There's a great concert going on this weekend, right? Or you don't have to practice so hard. What are you doing meditating so many hours a day? Just enjoy life, right? This kind of influence, you see, hmm, you know, if it was just the one with the horns, it'd be actually very easy, right? Because then we could have in our, our mind, okay, don't listen to the people with horns. Good, right? And yeah, we see this more and more in this degenerate time, right? A lot of bad advice contrary to Dharma, right? Mm. So then explanation refers to listening to wrong teachings. Habituation refers to the process of being accustomed to past afflictions. So this is what we're talking about, right? Habituation, same word, right? Gom as meditation. right? So this habituation can go both ways, right? From beginningless time till now, we've been habituated to past afflictions, and that's why they're so strong. So now we're trying to develop new habits, new ways of thinking and engaging with reality. And interestingly, we were talking before about this analytic meditation. So we do this. We've been doing this already. Right? When someone criticizes us, right? Then later we think, oh, they said this, then they said that, and then I said this, and they responded by that, and it, you know. So we go through this process of thinking. Then at the end, wow, next time I see them, I'm really gonna let them have it, right? That is a kind of analytic meditation on anger. We use a process of reasoning, we arrive at a conclusion, and then we hold that. So we know how. We know how to do this one. Now we just choose choose different objects, choose different ways of reasoning, and arrive at different conclusions, and hopefully get different results. Okay. Point 6, attention refers to incorrect attention that projects pleasantness onto what has an unpleasant character, conceives an impermanent thing to be permanent, and the like. So, yeah, these four erroneous conceptions, they're in the text they're related to the truth of suffering, right? So things that are actually impermanent, we conceive to be permanent. Things that are actually painful or suffering in nature, we conceive to be pleasant. Things that are impure, pure, and things that are lacking a self to be possessive self. We do this? Huh. These are very, very nice for contemplation too. Okay. Yeah. So to jump into it, right? So everything lacks a self. But hmm, see, there's different varying degrees of philosophical sophistication as to what that self means. So let's try this. Let's try this. Usually I like to do this kind of this Zen koan, right? If a tree falls in the forest and no one there to hear it, does it make a sound? Right? You heard that before? So what do we think? Yes? It makes a sound, right? So how many makes a sound? My Zoom people makes a sound, right? Okay, doesn't make a sound. No one doesn't doesn't make a sound. Nobody's there to hear it. Okay. So no, no. Namjong? Yes. Yes. Hmm? Right. So I'm saying no one. No no raccoons in the forest. No rabbits. No birds. No ants. No one. Then does that change? No sound. Still makes a sound. Makes a sound. Yeah. Okay. So now my friends who said no sound, Anyone on the Zoom? No sound? Wow. Okay. So now let's consider this. Beautiful orchid. Okay. So this orchid. Yeah. We all go home tonight. Okay. There's no one left in the gompa and no raccoons in the gompa. Okay. Then at midnight, no one in the gompa, no one there to see the orchid. Okay. Does the orchid exist? Yes. So no, this is for the people who said no sound. So if there's no one there to hear the sound, no sound, right? No one there to see the orchid, can there still be an orchid? You see, it's a yes or no. Don't be too cute. Hmm? You could. Okay, 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 okay. That's getting to a whole other thing. So, Romy, yes or no? Orchid at midnight. Quantum mechanics. Okay. Well, no. So this is what we're investigating. Sure. Okay. So who do we like? Okay. So anyway, then you're not off the hook. Yes or no? I want that yes or no answer. No, right? No, right? Okay. So now, let's say we have the orchid here now. We all leave. No orchid at midnight. We come back tomorrow. There's an orchid. No raccoons have taken the orchid, right? So let's say we come here tomorrow and the orchid is here. The orchid tomorrow, is that going to be the effect of the orchid from today? Is that going to be the substantial continuum of the orchid from today? Yes, but at midnight there's no orchid. So how can we talk about a continuum? No, no, I'm not getting. No, you guys are very too smart for me. I'm not getting cute. Well, really? So hold on. The stuff in your yurt, right? You go back. Okay, let's say you have a whatever. You left a mala on your desk. You go back. You're like, this is my mala. I recited 1,000 mani mantras yesterday with this mala, right? You weren't observing the mala every step. When you go to sleep and you wake up, you just those things same as before, right? No, I'm having questions for you. It's my turn. No, no, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. Uh, Sure. So, so this is what we are saying before when we start to talk about, you know, these are questions in the ultimate nature of reality, right? But remember, those totally untrained in philosophy, when you first ask the question, they'll be like, are you joking? Of course, there's a flower that's here. You know, why would it just disappear? Just that no one's seeing it, right? Right? So this is my question to our experienced students saying, no sound for the tree, no one there's to hear it. Then the flower disappears at midnight, right? Hmm. Okay. So that kind of hmm, maybe that's something interesting to continue to think about. Now, hmm, it's important to note that our kind of pre-philosophical training view is, of course, things persist in time and space, independent of minds observing them, right? Now, a question could be raised because now, some of you've attended Buddhist teachings before. You've attended some lectures on quantum mechanics. Thank you very much, you scholars. And now we have this notion. Wait a minute. Yeah, even the objects are dependent on their observer. And then when we hear, yeah, everything is merely labeled by the mind in some way, it means it's dependent on the mind, right? You want the answer? So me, myself, I've kind of gone through different phases of how to answer this. And it's tasty. It's nice to think about. Hmm. And actually, yeah, maybe it's not good just to tell you what I think, right? Remember, we're cutting, scorching, rubbing the gold, right? You don't want to just, I tell you, yeah, it's real gold. Give me $1,900 an ounce or something, right? No, I'm going to check. But maybe one thing to think about. Hmm. You know, if we, for example, go on a walk and in the nice, beautiful 108-acre land of Medicine Buddha grounds, we come across a coin, quarter, whatever. On the quarter, it says 1984, right? Can we take that to mean that the quarter was made in 1984 and somehow has persisted to this day? Hmm? Regardless of someone watching and looking at that quarter the whole time? Huh? Whoa, 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 whoa. Now you see, this is why the Buddha refrained from teaching for 7 weeks, right? So, okay, we say Namgyo, um, pass this orchid to Massimo. Okay, now you don't have to do, but thank you. She's so willing. I do that. Okay, actually, let's try. I say that. Could you give this orchid to Massimo? Okay, so did you find the orchid? Yeah, he found the orchid. Okay. So now, so okay, this is actually good. This is good. Ooh, we're kind of getting away from the anyway, it's okay. We'll go through this. Now, sorry. What was your name? Ali. Ali was saying, hey, how do we know that's an orchid? Really? Could be deceived. So for that, right? Maybe we don't know what an orchid is versus what a rose is. Maybe we're, you know, but there's a way of determining, right? Rose or orchid is referring to a specific species of flower. And there is some kind of worldly way we can determine, hey, this is an orchid, this is a flower. But the point is, we go through that process of determination through kind of worldly consciousness, right? We don't say, is that an orchid? Let me check, right? Right. So similarly, okay, is there a cup on my table? Well, there's a way of determining whether that's a cup or whether there's water in the cup or some other liquid or no liquid. These are all we're doing with conventional, our sense consciousness. If you have doubt, come up, check, you know? When we talk about the self, finding the self, that we're using the analytic mind, not our sense consciousness. So when you said, Massimo, you can't find the quarter, we also have to be very careful. Are we talking conventional or ultimate? And also, okay, conventional, yes, we find quarters. I'm going through the tolls. Oh, you have fast pass, right? Anyway, in the old days, right? You find your, oh man, I'm going through the tolls. Please help me find some quarters. And the people help you. They find quarters, you get through the toll, right? So on one level, that's what we talk about, findability. Can you find a quarter? Yeah, I have one in my pocket. Now, when we start to talk about the ultimate level, what would it mean to find something? Yeah. What does it mean to find something? Anyway, my head hurts. But to go back to your question, Ryan. So even this, um, when you ask thank you, the different Buddhist schools, okay, about the self, maybe in an easier way. So all the Buddhist schools, they would kind of refute the existence of a permanent, partless, independent self. means for you, right? So this actually is it's akin to the concept, I believe, of Atman in ancient Buddhist, or sorry, ancient Indian thought, where there is this kind of, maybe it's close to a soul, but it's permanent, unchanging, and totally independent of your body and mind, right? Okay, that one doesn't exist. You exist, but you are constantly changing, right? You have different thoughts. Hopefully, you're a better person than you were 5, 10 years ago, right? There's no sort of permanent you-ness that can be found. There's nothing independent of your body and mind that can be found. But I don't know, you can check. You can check. We were saying how this concept of the self is the sort of root of all the afflictions. There's a story I found very fascinating. There's actually a video that went viral many years ago. I don't know if you saw it, but a fight broke out in the Korean parliament. You saw this? So what happened? What happened? Some government policy people didn't like? No. One person said to another that your mustache was thin. Your mustache was thin. Very much. It means you're somehow less of a man. I don't know, right? So, based on hearing those words, okay, get angry, threw a punch in the parliament. So here, if those words were somehow intrinsically, right, in and of themselves, harmful, damaging, insulting, then anyone who hears those words would also be insulted, right? Right? I mean, when we talk about objective intrinsic reality, right? Then whatever, this cup has a certain weight, and that means anyone who weighs the cup, if their scale is working properly, would come up with the same answer, right? Hmm? Now, you just heard those words, right? Your mustache is thin. Anyone offended? Huh? Little, huh? Uh, so for me, it's also true for me. I'm half Asian. I don't have much hair at all. And so, you say that to me, for sure, I'm not offended. I'm not going to punch you, nothing, right? But what happened probably for that person, also the sense of, but sorry, I'm not saying I'm an arhat or any realized being. There's other things you could say to me, I probably would get upset. But that one, probably okay. But what happens, I think there's a sense, that person, right, tied up in the masculinity and this kind of sense of the me being masculine and macho or whatever it is. And then when that gets a little bit uh, poked at, then the anger comes more, right? So here, it's that projection of the the me, the I, that's kind of real and there and has its attributes. Mm, larger than life sense of that I. That one doesn't exist. Hmm? Well, so that's the thing, right? On one level, we should respect everyone. But what do we say when we were reflecting on samsara? We were saying one of the faults of samsara is that we're constantly meeting with things that are unpleasant. So we're in samsara. We're going to meet people that don't respect us. Hey, even there's people that criticize Shakyamuni Buddha was criticized. Our gurus being criticized. So then, even if these great beings with all these wonderful qualities can get criticized and disrespected, of course, we with a fraction of their qualities will also be disrespected. But the question is then, what is the response, right? So, just as we should respect everyone, when we are disrespected, we should also not freak out and fight someone in the Korean parliament or anywhere, right? Hmm. Reminds me of another story. Sorry. These stories, I hope, illuminate something about Dharma, right? So, yeah. Anyway, maybe some of you don't know, but Ryan and I we were in the same singing group in university. And this group we used to go on tour. So anyway, he was a few years older than me. So after he graduated, we went on tour in Italy, and we're in Milan at the Duomo. There's a kind of town square. Yeah. Okay. And at that time, okay, this is before digital cameras and all that, or phone cameras. So there are these people. So there's a lot of pigeons in that square, and people will put corn, like you go like this. They put corn on your arms. The pigeons come. They take a snap. It's really cool, right? Look at me with all the pigeons. Okay, so I'm there with some friends of mine. We do this, and then of course the people who do that, they're not just doing it out of the kindness of their hearts. Afterwards, you know, give me some money. So unlike in the U.S., in Europe, coins they're worth a lot. You got a two euro coin, all this stuff. So the guy asked for money afterwards. My friend gave him a handful of change for some corn, probably, I don't know, 5 6 euros. Not bad. This guy was unhappy. I was going to use another word. And so he starts berating us, right? I could recognize, well, one phrase in the Italian. But anyway, you didn't have to know Italian to know the meaning, right? But at one point, it just appeared to me so comical because he was going off for like maybe a minute, but he was like berating us in Italian, and I didn't know Italian, so it's just like found it so comical. that what he was trying to do, insulting me, it was having none of the intended effect. And so I start laughing, which of course makes him go even more, right? So even when people are disrespecting us, right? This is kind of what we want, right? That it would have the same effect as someone doing it in a language we don't understand at all, and be like immune, totally immune to that. You can say whatever you want, respect, no respect. That's not going to, you know, disturb my mental peace, right? Mm, I like that trip very much, despite that person. And actually, I've gotten a lot of mileage out of that story. Is very instructional for me, even now. Okay, so false of the afflictions. Maybe next one. Ooh. So here, Lama Tsongkhapa. When affliction arises, at first it completely afflicts the mind, causing you to err with regard to what you're observing, reinforcing, here's the phrase again, your latent proclivities and causing the same affliction to recur. It may harm you, others, or both. It leads to misdeeds in this life, in future lives, or in both. It creates experiences of pain and anguish as well as the sufferings of birth and the like. It takes you far from nirvana. Your virtue is destroyed and your resources are depleted. In society, you feel apprehensive, joyless, and devoid of confidence, while your notoriety, bad reputation, spreads in all directions, and excellent persons, such as teachers and protectors, rebuke you. You die with regret, your aims unfulfilled, and after death, you are reborn into a miserable realm. Wow. Lama Tsongkhapa telling us how it is. It's good, you know? Because, right, some, it's okay. Yeah. Express your anger. It's good. Be real, right? So, anyway, causing you to err with regard to what you're observing. This is another thing, how we can differentiate the affliction from, like a the unhealthy one, right? So when we talk about attachment, when it gets afflictive, then we sort of superimpose above and beyond what's actually the reality, right? And so, hmm, you know, you're the most beautiful woman in the world. I can't live without you. You know, all these things, superimposing. Or, you're the worst person in the world, right? All this, right? Quite exaggerated, right? And so then because we have the thought that there is actually something there independent of my mind, right? So put it in this term. We all know the saying beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So this actually is pointing to something quite true. I think the Buddha would agree with that, right? It means no objective beauty out there from the object's own side, independent from us. But according to whatever, be it uh, cultural norms or whatever, then we hold certain qualities to be attractive or not. Sorry. I keep getting in my I don't know, AdSense, like the ads that come like on the bottom of pages. There's one that comes up a lot, like see what qualities were seen as most beautiful over the last 100 years. Have you ever seen this one? But you know, it happened like I don't know, some time ago, early 2000s. All the models became super skinny, right? That stick look, Kate Moss, all this stuff. And then, different times you look at, Renoir paintings and there's a different kind of aesthetic of beauty 300 years ago, different culture, all this stuff. So beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But, you know, uh, though we might pay lip service to that, now, I don't support the objectification of women, all that kind of disclaimer. But before, when they used to have like a beauty pageant or whatever, maybe some people, they would even argue, right? Miss Universe. Oh no, Miss Argentina. That's the winner. That's the best. No way. Miss Sweden. Whatever kind of arguments people have. It's like, look, are you blind? Look again. Right? This happened? Mm. In those arguments, anyone, hey, wait a minute, guys. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Let's see. Okay, maybe 2 more slides. Next one. Some more on the faults of the afflictions. Enemies such as hatred and craving have neither feet nor hands and are neither brave nor intelligent. How then have they enslaved me? When they dwell within my mind, they are pleased to do me harm. They are not to be endured without anger. Tolerance of them is ridiculous. Even if all the deities and demigods should rise up as my enemy, they cannot lead me or force me into the fires of unrelenting hell. But this powerful enemy, the afflictions, casts me in an instant into fire so hot that if they met even Mount Meru, right, not even ashes would remain. The enemy that is my afflictions has lasted a long time without beginning or end. No other enemy has the power to last for such a long time. Given appropriate service and attention, everyone helps you and makes you happy. But if you serve your afflictions, they only inflict future suffering. Chandideva, from Bodhisattva Charyavatara. So one more, and then I'll give some commentary. So the great Tibetan master Gompawa. Why are we talking about all this? So he's saying, right, to eliminate the afflictions. Why do we want to do that? That's how nirvana is attained. So in order to eliminate the afflictions, you must know afflictions' faults, their characteristics, their remedies, and the causes for their arising. After you have recognized their faults, regard them as defective and consider them as enemies. If you do not recognize their thoughts, you will not understand that they are enemies. Therefore, it is said that you should reflect on this, following what is said in the ornament from Mahayana Sutras and engaging in the Bodhisattva's deeds. So, by the way, these quotations on the previous 2 pages, the first one from Lama Tsongkhapa, he was paraphrasing 2 stanzas from Ornament of Mahayana Sutras, and engaging in the bodhisattva's deeds, that's the bodhisattva charyavatara. Study Vasubandhu and Asanga's text on knowledge as well in order to understand the characteristics of the afflictions. At the least, study Vasubandhu's explanation of the five aggregates. Once you know the root and secondary afflictions, then when any attachment, hostility, or such arises in your mind stream, you can identify it, thinking, this is that, now it has arisen, and fight the affliction. Okay. How do you stop serving the afflictions? Well, so, at our level, or sorry, at my level, when we do this and we're mindful of what's going on, the afflictions will still arise, but at the beginning, we try not to let it propel us into doing something negative with our body or speech, right? So normally, okay, what I would say, what does it mean to serve the afflictions, right? So you have a servant, or you have a servant, and you tell it what to do. So our afflictions are telling us, when someone criticizes us, we get angry. It's telling us, criticize them back. So to right now, very difficult to not have the anger arise, but it's telling us, criticize them back, but we grit our teeth. That's stopping, right? We go on strike, right? We go on strike. Then it'll pass. That's really good for now, because even that, pumping the brakes to that point, right? That's already in opposition to just letting it go, right? And just flying off the handle, right? This is what we talk about. Flying off the handle, totally uncontrolled. So we control. And as they say, it's easier to control our body and speech than it is to control the mind. But in controlling the body and speech, we're at least not letting that fire spread. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. For 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 sure. For sure. It's not easy. And that's why we're still in samsara. For sure. And this is what we're talking about with the cause of the afflictions, if we can go back a couple, right? So social context, right? Our friends, our environment, that plays a huge role, right? We live here in a nice, peaceful redwood forest, or we're living in, place where there's, a lot of bad influence and disturbances. On a practical level, another thing you see, and those of you who have done a bit of Vipassana, being aware of the sensations in the body. Okay. Because remember, we're very expert in the analytic meditation on anger, right? So we replay it. He said this, he said that, they did this, right? So the more we have that conceptual elaboration, the afflictions are going to go stronger. So one thing we can do is to cut that process of these mental elaborations. We then focus back in the body. And again, you know, sorry. Okay, where is that feeling manifesting? Where do I feel the anger? What's going on in my body right now? Okay, I get some heat in the back of the neck. Maybe my breathing gets a bit like this. Okay, then I'm just observing what's going on in the body. That helps to cut that he did this, she did that, the conceptual mind. That can be very useful at my level. And then, sometimes we also have to get out of that situation, right? Sometimes this has happened a few times, especially it's very easy, like when we're texting, maybe get into that little tiff, right? And turn off the phone, get some space, like, and it's okay. You can admit, you know what? My mind's a bit disturbed now. You don't have to say this to the other person, but just to yourself. My mind's disturbed now. I'm not going to have the right thing to say. I'm not going to handle the situation quite how I want to. So I'm going to give it a rest. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's sad. Yeah. So, man, there's a lot to say. So a few things, few comments maybe to make. One thing we have to understand is, yeah, when we look around, so in the kind of text, this period is known as the age of conflict, the Kali Yuga, where the afflictions, conflict, all this stuff is just increasing more and more. In other words, these are like, they say, degenerate times. Now, I'll tell you, for myself, at one point, I got off the news. It was just too much. All this stuff out there, not in my control, feeling the powerlessness. Oh man, I fell into, yeah, not a good place. So we also have to see, um, when we talk about the afflictions, what is it, right? Social context, all this stuff. We are consumers of that, right? Whether it be the news or the entertainment or even the conversations we take, all these things we take in, it's going to affect our mind. So we also have to be our own kind of check. Hey, if it's getting too much, I'm going on a news fast, right? Right. And we follow our gurus, we follow the Buddha's example, where, he's, even he was going to be king, right? He'd be the one with the political authority. But, he said, actually, I gotta finish the path. I gotta change myself fundamentally, discover the way to overcome all the suffering, not just the suffering of violence in schools or whatever you want to say, right? So it might not be immediately kind of satisfying because we always feel we want to do more in the world. But, when I was starting off on my path, I came across this quotation by Tolstoy. It's like, everyone wants to change the world, no one wants to change themselves. Hmm? So, of course, we have two jobs. Let's boil it down to two jobs we have. We want to benefit others, but we also have to increase our ability to benefit others. And sometimes it's completely fine to say, you know what, in my current state, I'm relatively powerless to affect things on a very deep and profound level, but I have more control about me, my mind. I'm going to practice and I'm going to, improve this guy. I'm starting with a man in the mirror, right? I'm asking him to make a change. No message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, then take a look at yourself and make a change, right? What sutra is that from? So there's 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 something there, right? Something very, very true there. Because yeah, otherwise, very easy to kind of, yeah, get lost and feel hopeless in the world. And then, you know, the people we do interact with on a day-to-day basis, that small circle, we can we can do a lot for them, right? We make a difference for them, right? So, right, think globally, act locally, right? Man, I wish I could do something about all the suffering in Michigan, but I'm starting with the suffering in Stockwell. That's okay. My favorite story, or one of my favorite stories, not even a Dharma story, but you know, the person on the beach, uh, they walk on the beach in the morning. All these starfish have washed ashore. Yeah, the sun comes up. He thinks, oh my gosh, these starfish are gonna die. Starts throwing the starfish. There's probably 1,000 starfish. Starts throwing them back in the ocean. Then another person comes up. Hey, what are you doing? These starfish are gonna die. I'm trying to save them. He said, look, there's thousands of starfish. You're not gonna be able to save them all. What you're doing is not gonna make a difference. It makes a difference to this one, right? There's something, right? But to get lost in that, if I can't save all the starfish, I'm not gonna save one. Or if I can't, prevent all the problems in the world, I'm not gonna prevent any. You know, yeah, this is a bit too much. How's that sound? Exactly, right? Countless Buddhas have appeared in throughout history, but that's the thing, right? It actually talks about this in the teaching. You see, we have our particular karmic connection. So remember those first five disciples of the Buddha who had practiced with him? Well, actually, in a previous life of the Buddha, when the Buddha was king in a certain area, there were five blood drinking demons. And those demons were kind of killing the people in his country. He calls them and says, hey, drink my blood instead. Don't kill my people who I care about. Then through that karmic connection, it established them to then be the first five disciples of Buddha. So although countless Buddhas have appeared in the past, countless Buddhas are appearing in the present, there's ones, still countless beings out there that haven't been liberated by previous Buddhas. But I tell you, when you become Buddha, hopefully soon, but that you'll have those your first five disciples, right? That have a particular karmic connection with you and not with His Holiness, not with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, not with me, right? So then we still, what we're doing, even in a limited way, is still important because that's where we are. We do the best we can. And tomorrow we do maybe a little bit more. And then maybe next month we get burned out and we have to maybe back out a little bit. That's okay too. But then just keep going. It's okay. All right. So now our time's up. We started 9 minutes late. And so we're also ending 9 minutes late. So this session hasn't gone over. It was the previous session. We'll blame that one. Okay. So now it's good. That's what I wanted to cover today. And then people are like, what are the 12 links? Talk about that tomorrow. We have 2 more sessions. So let's dedicate the merit for all beings to be free from all their suffering and the cause of suffering and attain the blissful state of complete enlightenment as quickly as possible. And then all these problems we're talking about, man, war, environmental problems, violence, economic problems, any cause of suffering of body and mind, may they instantly be pacified right now. Not just in this world, not in just this country, but all the world, the whole universe. Okay. Have a good evening. And we'll see you tomorrow. All my friends on Zoom, thank you. We didn't get to some of your questions, but that's why we have tomorrow. Okay. Okay. Bonne nuit. Huh? They're, oh, they're waving. Oh, I see. Okay. Bye.